See, the thing is that there's heavenly originals, and we need to understand that every article, everything. So when you read Leviticus and you see all these little details, don't overlook those things and say, well, you don't need to read it, because these are like detailed instructions, and every article, every instrument, every animal, every spiritual procedure used in the service of the Almighty Jah of Abraham was designed for a special and specific holy purpose. Moses received instructions from Jah in the mountain of Sinai. Jah said, make everything, he said to Moses, according to a certain pattern. Let's look at these heavenly originals.
Exodus 25, verse 9. According to all that I show thee, after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all the instruments thereof, even so shall ye make it.
So we see that there's a pattern. So there's an original, like the, which, and then you have like the blueprint is like the original, and then they're making this other pattern, just like how the temple was patterned off of Jah's heavenly temple in heaven. Now, the book of Hebrews also refers to this command.
Hebrews 8, verse 5. See, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount.
So everything that's kind of on earth dealing with Israel's, any of the instruments, the temple, or all these things, they are patterned off of heavenly originals, even down to the shofars and the trumpets.
That's right.
A just ceremonial command foretells specific acts in the plan and the gospel or good news of salvation. Each point there to point out an eternal concept or a moral principle that Jah wants to bring to our attention. And the silver trumpets mentioned in Numbers 10 are no exception. They both point to the heavenly originals, the trumpets of Jah, which are blown by Jah and his son. Now we first see the use of the heavenly trumpets in the giving of the law of Jah at Mount Sinai to Israel.
Exodus 19, verse 13. There shall not an hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount.
So we see, again, it's almost like what Jah gave to Israel, how to use the trumpets. It's even the same thing that he's using. So when he was on the mountain, this trumpet sounded long, and that was to call the people to the mount, but they were not to go up on it.
That's right. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded long and waxed louder and louder, Moses spake, and Jah answered him by a voice.
Wow. So again, we see this trumpet sounding long from the mountain. And I do believe not only John his son might blow the trumpets, but also Michael and Gabriel, the two archangels as well. They'd be as well sounding this trumpet, because we do know that angels also sound the trumpets as well in Revelation. So here we have
loud. Can you imagine how loud that must have sounded?
Oh man. And we know that sound could shatter glass, and rocks for that matter. So it was very, very loud, echoing amongst the people. Thunders and lightnings on top of Mount Sinai when Jah came down. It was quite spectacular.
Mm.
So let's talk about holy convocations. Jah's Feast, as we've published for over 25 years now. It's been a long time. I've been in the faith for, I would call it 29 years, but over 25 years now, we've been publishing these things, and they're shadows and memorials of Jah's mightiest acts in his scriptural calendar or almanac of salvation. You see, when these festivals are celebrated before the event, they are foreshadowing things to come. When they are celebrated after the event, they are memorials that will continue to be memorials for all time.
Exodus 23, verse 14. 3 times shalt thou keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it thou camest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And in the feast of harvest, the first fruits of thy labors which thou hast sown in thy field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labors out of the field.
That's right. So when we see these festivals mentioned here, it says the Feast of Harvest. And a lot of people, when they think about harvest, they think about, of course, it's in gathering of crops. But this Feast of Harvest, dealing with the first fruits, is dealing with wheat harvest, right? And
Right.
the barley and wheat harvest. It's not the summer fruits harvest, which is going to be beginning, like I said, next week with Ethanim. And that harvest, summer fruits harvest, will last 3 months long. So we have in gathering. When it says the end of the year, it doesn't mean the last month of the year. It's the second half of the year. So like the first half of the year, you have the spring festivals, and then the second half of the year, from the seventh month on, you will have the fall festivals. So
That's
some people get mixed up when they see the word end of the year, and they think is does that mean the exact last month of the year?
right. So these three feasts mentioned here is referring to Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of First Fruits, and of course, Tabernacles.
That's right.
Exodus 34, verse 18. The Feast of Unleavened Bread shalt thou keep. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee, in the time of the month of Bib. For in the month of Bib thou camest out from Egypt. And thou shalt observe the Feast of Weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering at year's end.
So you see how when we put line upon line and precept upon precept, when I was telling you up in verse 16 of Exodus 23, we had the Feast of Harvest, the first fruits. Then when we look down at Exodus 34, verse 22, we see it's the Feast of Weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest.
That's
So
right.
that's how we get to know these things, because again, people can get confused when you hear harvest. You're thinking the end of summer harvest, but this is talking about the first fruits of wheat harvest, which occurs during the months of Abib, Ziph, Sivan, the first 3 months of the year. And again, the Feast of Ingathering is the Feast of Tabernacles.
Verse 23. Thrice in the
Oh,
thrice
sorry.
in the year. It's all right.
You go ahead.
Thrice in the year shall all your men children appear before Jael, the El of Israel.
That's right. So these three specific times, and during these three specific times, there's 7 holy convocations.
Exodus 5, verse 1. And afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, Thus saith Jael of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness.
Now, I brought this up last week when we are talking about the festivals and how they're important to us believers today. But again, I just wanted to kind of reiterate how all of these things are dealing with foreshadowing and memorials of the past. And so, even so, last week, if you remember us reading about tabernacles being in the future and all the festivals, that we're going to be going to Jerusalem to keep these festivals. And those who don't come, well, it's going to be a problem for them. So here's another verse from the Apocrypha dealing with the kingdom of Jah and kind of the relation to the festivals as well.
2 Ezra 2, verse 38. Arise up and stand. Behold the number of those that be sealed in the feast of Jah, which are departed from the shadow of the world, and have received glorious garments of Jah.
That's right.
Nice.
So I think, in the way the steps I see it is people are going to first, when it comes to, once they kind of come out of Christianity, mainstream Christianity that way, they're going to start putting down those pagan festivals. They won't keep Christmas and Easter and all of those other things that you can attach to it, but they'll start to learn now about the Feast of the Most High. And probably for the most part, most people, unless you get a hold of us early, they're probably going to go to the lunar solar calendar first, which many Israelite groups and also Gentile Christian groups also keep as well, along with the Gentile Jews, Ashkenazi Khazarians that way. But
Yes.
we see here that the feasts are part of the sealing of Jah, because as we remember last week, we talked about how Jah's festivals and the Passover in particular is like a sign or a token between Jah and his people.
That's
So
right.
we're coming up from the shadow of this world, right, Dean?
That's right. I mean, if Jah's feasts are holy, then you have to understand that Jah's Holy Spirit is present on his feast. So it only makes sense that his servants are sealed in Jah's holy feasts. And of
Wow.
course, we have to depart from the shadow of the world, meaning the things that are in it, the satanic things that we might have grew up and kept now. We depart from these things and move forward and keep Jah's holy things.
Mm-hmm. That's right, brother. The seven holy convocations of Jah. So you remember these? I spoke about them. Quickly go through them. The first day of Passover, dealing with his sacrifice. The seventh day of Passover with the sheep, dealing with his ascension and his resurrection. Pentecost, our first fruits, dealing with his birth, also the giving of the Holy Spirit. Again, we teach the spring feast represent the first coming, the fall feast represent the second coming. So you might have people out there that teach that the Messiah was born during the Festival of Tabernacles. That's erroneous. And you're going to probably find that a lot. Many people who kind of shoot down the Christmas idea, they jump right into Tabernacles first, and they believe that he was born in a tabernacle during the Festival of Tabernacles, but that's not so. He was born during the Feast of Weeks, first fruits or Pentecost. And again, tabernacles represents the second coming of the Messiah, not his first coming. So we have the Day of Trumpets, signaling the trumpets that are sounding, the seals and the trumpets that sound before he comes. We have the Day of Atonement, which is the fast, which symbolically represents his arrival down to earth via the clouds and also a resurrection. The first day of Tabernacles represents the 1,000-year reign with the Messiah and the resurrections. And the eighth day of Tabernacles represents a new creation. So judgment comes, and then a destruction of this old universe here, and then we're going to have a new universe coming, a new heavens and a new earth. And all of these are, can be found in the festivals. That's right. There's many things to learn about these things in the festivals, of which you're going to get a lot of information from today's lesson, of course, but next week in particular as well, and the rest of the feasts for this month. So again, the Feast of Jah are his prophetic plans of the salvation through his son, Jehoshua, our Savior.
Matthew 13, verse 24. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, did not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then came it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, No, nay, lest ye gather up the tares also. Lest ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Hold on, Sean. I don't think.
Yeah, sorry. This parable he gave to the apostles, and now he's going to explain what this parable is.
Matthew 13, verse 36. Then Jehoshua sent the multitude away and went into the house. And his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man.
That's him himself, right?
That's right. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them that do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who had ears to hear, let him hear.
That's right. So if we have ears to hear these things, we should know that the tares of this world are from the wicked one. But the thing is, the angels couldn't, take out the tares right away, because if you were to take out the tares right away, you would have uprooted, the good wheats that way.
Right.
So we have to wait until, the harvest time. And one thing about tares and the wheat is tares look very, very similar to wheat. Unless you have a trained eye, you wouldn't be able to notice the difference between a tare and wheat. And it's the same thing, even today, whether we're dealing with counterfeit money, If you don't really have a good clean eye to look at, uh, the differences between real and counterfeit money, probably counterfeit money's passed through your hands, many times. But if you were trained, you'd be able to notice the difference. But this now comes down to individual human beings. We
Mhm.
see in the scriptures a lot that people can show love with their mouth and sorrow and pretend they cry and they're pious and all of that, but their heart is far from Jah.
That's
And
right.
this is how far human beings go. We will act out and pretend that we are sorrowful, but meanwhile we're not really repentant. So be very careful, because we can see here that there's not a good, fate for the tares at the end of this, this age or this era, this world. They're going to get burnt up, and that's dealing with the lake of fire.
That's right. And for all those people who think that Jah's commandments are done away with, understand that Jah's using his scriptures as a measuring stick. When he says he's going to gather all those that offend and do iniquity, that's referring to Jah's commandments,
Ah, yes.
right? So all those people who want to break Jah's commandments, knowingly or not, those are the people that are going to be offending and who are going to be removed out of Jah's kingdom.
Hmm. That's right, D. That's right. So we have to make sure we're making these spiritual preparations for the fall feasts, these holy days that are fulfilled in the Messiah. This is why we want to do these things so that we can show honor and praise to our Father and the Son.
Leviticus 23, verse 24. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation.
So we're just going through the fall feast in Leviticus as a clean read. And you notice it says the first day of the month is a Sabbath. That's
That's right.
why the first day of the seventh month is on the seventh day Sabbath. Right? It works out perfectly. And it's the only month in Jah's 12-month calendar or almanac that starts on the seventh day Sabbath. All the other months start on various other days of the week, but none on the seventh day Sabbath except the seventh month, which
Yes.
works out so perfect.
Also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls, and an offering made by fire unto Jah. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. There shall do no servile work therein.
So dealing with tabernacles now. As you can see, I'm skipping through verses just to highlight those verses. But again, next week we'll go through more detail.
Verse 36. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Jah. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Jah. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. These are the feasts of Jah, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto Jah, a burnt offering, and a meat offering, a sacrifice, and drink offerings, everything upon his day.
That's right. Now, us in these new covenant times and the new covenant, the new covenant era, let's call it, under the Messiah, we don't have any offerings and sacrifices and all those things because all of those things are done in the Messiah. But what we would do is, like it says in verse 35, the first day shall be a holy convocation, no work. So that we do. We don't do no sacrifices or anything. And it's the same thing with the eighth day, it's a holy convocation. And for 27th, the verse 27, the Day of Atonement, we also fast on that day as well, eating no water, eating no food and drinking no water.
Right. And that's what it means when it says, and ye shall afflict your souls, meaning, as Sean said, no food or drink.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of people, thank you.